Education, pages 54 to 56. Mrs. Margaret Tanner's classroom in a sunny Southern California elementary school is similar to any other fifth grade room in communities all over the United States. The school was constructed in the 1950s, and the core number of students it serves has remained around 600 since its opening. Since she started teaching there in 1981, Mrs. Tanner has had as few as 19 students in her classroom and as many as 35. But on the average, her daily attendance is between 26 and 28 students of both sexes. Mrs. Tanner has taught fifth grade in this classroom, in this school, in a suburb of Los Angeles for 24 years. At the core of her philosophy of education is her emphasis on student interaction as a framework for successful educational outcomes for all students. When she accepted her initial teaching assignment, the dominant student population was middle class, white, and English-speaking, the descendants of people who had emigrated to the United States from Europe during the 19th and early 20th centuries. In short, they were very similar to Mrs. Tanner herself. In that first decade of her professional career, however, demographic shifts took place in California. Los Angeles expanded and its suburbs multiplied, and her community became a popular location for recently arrived Mexican immigrants and other Spanish-speaking people coming to California from towns and cities in the southwestern United States. Correspondingly, the proportions of white and minority children in Mrs. Tanner's fifth grade class also began to change. Her white middle-class students were joined by African American children whose parents had relocated from the southern United States, and by children who spoke Spanish in their working-class homes and commuted regularly between the United States and Mexico. The parents of these children, like the grandparents of her earlier students, had come to the United States to find employment with sufficient financial compensation to ensure a higher standard of living for their families. Since the second decade of Mrs. Tanner's teaching career, considerable shifts in the population have continued to alter the demographics of her students. More and more, she is teaching children who speak a variety of languages in their homes and communities, including Spanish, Vietnamese, Russian, Hmong, Chinese, and Farsi. In the classroom, students' English abilities may be at the beginning, intermediate, or advanced level. The students come from families who have immigrated to the United States to seek a better standard of living, to find freedom from political or religious constraints, or to escape from dangerous circumstances in their own countries. Mrs. Tanner has reacted to these demographic shifts by remaining constant in her enthusiasm and her vision for her teaching job. But she is also the first to admit that the ethnic diversity of her students illustrates the challenges of her role as a teacher and of her understanding of the tasks and techniques necessary to teach her students effectively. As she comments, her greatest challenge is now the cultural diversity of her students, who come from different countries, language backgrounds, and economic levels. In order to reach her diverse students while creating a positive learning environment, components that address the integration of cultural and language differences must enter into her teaching strategies. At the same time, the school's reliance on state levies for funds may constrain her efforts to teach the various minority groups in her classroom in the most effective ways. Note, demographics refers to the characteristics of people who live in a specific area. The word is derived from the Greek words demo, people, and graph, record or write.